This is StormReel, a podcast about the intersection of people and weather, hosted by storm chasers Jeremy Heyman and me, Gabe Cox.
Welcome to StormReel, the podcast about the intersection of people and weather. I'm your host, Jeremy Heyman, joined by my fellow host, Gabe Cox. Hey, Gabe, how you doing, man?
Doing wonderful. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing great. We are in December. That's when we are recording this right now. It's crazy. It's crazy how fast this year has gone. 2025 has been a wild weather year. Kind of a strange weather year in a lot of ways, but lots of records being set and things like that. Really crazy year. Just like looking back, reflecting on the year that has been. We've got a great guest on the show today to talk about maybe one of those particular events, weather events. But before we dive into that, a pretty cool thing. You just heard, listener, our great intro song by the fantastic producer Orograph. But Gabe, you sent me this screenshot from Instagram of Orograph. Tell us what he's up to. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So for you, Stranger Things fans out there, you're going to love this. I had no idea until I saw this on his Instagram account, but he has worked on the last 3 seasons as a score mix engineer.
So cool.
Which is really awesome. It's a very important job. If you don't have the right levels, it's going to throw off your whole show. So very important to have that. So cool that he's working on that. But also I found out that he has some of his own music in the new season, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. So for you fans out there, be sure to tune in to Stranger Things season 5 and listen for Orograph's music. Yeah.
A show that is in a lot of ways built around its music and sound design and score and things like that. It's very iconic. So
it's its own character.
Yeah. Congrats to Orograph on that. That season release. It's the final season. We'll see what happens to our friends. Who knows who lives and who dies. Yeah. Pretty nuts. So that's pretty sweet. That's the dude who made our theme song.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Super fun. And I was seeing that. I was like, man, I'm honored that he let us use it even more now. It was very kind of him to help us out there.
Absolutely. So cool. I love it. It's such an awesome song. It's the right vibe for sure.
Good sweaty jam.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like Local on the 8s after dark or something, like it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Well, speaking of, we touched on 2025 being a record setting year in a lot of ways. It looks like we have a new meteorological record on the books from 2025.
Yeah, and this is, we're going to transition into talking about Hurricane Melissa here. This is just one of the records that Melissa set. But this one's a pretty crazy statistic. The hurricane hunters dropped a dropson. And for those of you who don't know, that's a instrument that the planes drop throughout the hurricane to measure wind speed, air pressure, dew point. And so they're collecting all this data that feeds into the models so we can get more accurate forecasts. So they dropped a dropson into I believe it was the eastern eyewall on October the 28th, just before it made landfall. And that dropson measured a wind gust of 252 miles per hour,
oh my God,
which is insane. Now, granted, this was about 200 meters above the surface. So at the surface, it was a little bit slower than that because you get the friction of the sea and the ground. But they were speculating that some of the higher peaks in Jamaica, because it has its own mountainous terrain, they may have experienced those winds because of their elevation. So there's no recorded data from the mountains, but we do have this new record. It's the highest wind speed ever recorded on a drop zone, which is wild. So 252 miles an hour. And again, that's just a record for the drop zone. If you go dig deeper into wind speed records, you have Doppler radar record, which is 321 miles an hour.
Gosh.
That's from May 3rd, 1999. The Moore, Oklahoma F5. And then the more standard measuring device, anemometer, which you guys have all seen. A lot of them look like little cups on sticks. The record for an anemometer measured wind gust is 253 miles per hour during Tropical Cyclone Olivia. And that was in Australia on April 10th, 1996. Crazy. And a lot of you may have heard, maybe have not heard that one, because that one actually, it took several years for it to be confirmed. And before that, there was a long-standing wind gust record that was held by Mount Washington in New Hampshire of 231 miles an hour. And that was set in 1934. So that one stood for a while for the anemometer record. And then Tropical Cyclone Olivia took over 253 miles an hour. Measured by an anemometer.
That poor anemometer, like that thing was just ripping, you know. You just like hope those things can, you know, last to those wind speeds. That's so crazy. Wow. Yeah, Melissa, just an absolute monster. Such a crazy storm. And I would imagine for years, you know, new data will be rolling out and being analyzed and confirmed, and, you know, more records being set from that storm. Absolutely. Just a very strange Atlantic hurricane season. I mean, in terms of, you know, not a ton of landfalling storms, thank goodness for the Atlantic coast and the Gulf Coast, but an absolute monster in Melissa hitting the Caribbean. Yeah, really wild. Well, we would definitely want to talk more about that with our guest. We have the perfect guest on to discuss Hurricane Melissa. Let me bring him in here really quick. Max Olson is a seasoned veteran of extreme weather chasing with well over 250 tornadoes and more than 10 hurricanes successfully intercepted across the globe. Max also leads storm chasing trips with Extreme Tornado Tours. He is a prolific extreme weather videographer who creates fantastic short documentaries which capture the intense beauty and destruction that severe weather brings. Welcome to the show, Max Olson.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Thanks for being here, man. We're so stoked to get to talk, man.
Yeah, love having you on, man. We've run into each other so many times, Chase, and it's nice to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, many times over the past, almost decade that I think we've kind of been running into each other. It's been a while.
Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely, man. How was your 2025 chase season? Are you thinking back on it now that we're kind of coming to the end of the year? It's the winter time, things slowing down a little bit.
It was solid. You know, it's hard because it was such a good year and there's so many tornadoes to you know, have potentially seen. And nowadays it's just like some people are just on everything and the live streamers and everything. You just see everything that you could potentially miss, and you think back on your season and go, well, it was pretty good, but I didn't see this and this, and then you sit and think about it a bit more and you're like, that was a great season. So I saw a lot of good tornadoes. I'm happy with the season. And then, you know, as we'll get into with Melissa, it kind of felt like hurricane season was going to be a bust, and then it just, you know, it sure wasn't with that last storm.
Gosh, no kidding, man. Your mini doc on Melissa is really fabulous on YouTube. We'll link in the show notes for sure all the videos that we mention in this chat, but it's well worth everybody to go watch, just because, you know, like coverage was, you know, a little spare, just it you know, not being like a specifically like continental US hurricane landfall. So y'all, you know, getting on the island and being in the eye, it's a really special piece of documentation, man. It's really a great watch.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tell us a little bit more about that chase, especially it being an international hurricane chase. There's got to be like different layers of complexity in planning and executing a chase like that. But I know you definitely lay out some of those details in the video, but for our listeners' sake, take us through kind of those like early days of looking at forecast models, looking at the track and deciding kind of go, no go on getting to Jamaica.
It was a very last minute decision to go, as it is with many hurricanes. But, like you said, here we are staring down a potential record breaking storm even before it was a hurricane. A lot of models had it going Cat 4, Cat 5. The NHC discussion mentioned potentially Cat 5. And we're kind of like booking this trip completely last minute, right? And this is a new country that we've never been to. We don't know the coastline. We even just like small things like driving on the left side of the road are like things we're thinking about, trying to figure out places to stay. So it was really last minute, but we made the call to go. Montego Bay Airport was set to close, I believe, the 25th or 26th. We flew out on the 25th and got in with zero issues other than a few delays in the States. And we kind of just like got there, got the rental car, and we're like, whoa, we're here. Like this is going to happen. And at that time, it looked like the hurricane was probably going to make landfall a little bit more on the southwestern side. So we went down to the Kingston area, and that's where we kind of set up for a day. And we didn't have time to like sit and process. Like we landed, got in the rental car, tried to get down to Kingston as quick as possible because it was almost getting dark. And then like we kind of woke up the next morning and we're like, okay, we need to like start figuring this out. And that's when it started making a bit more of a westward jog, and we kind of went from there.
Yeah.
Wow.
What was the general mood like when you landed?
It was intense in the sense that we're like, wow, this thing, it was as it was really starting to strengthen, and we're like, okay, this thing it's doing what some of the models said. And, it was hard to trust some of the models after previous storms that year had just not come to fruition. And so it was, it was doing the thing, and we arrived in this foreign country. We're looking around, we're like, okay, this is a foreign country. We're feeling a little bit out of place, but, not anything too crazy. It was just like, wow, we're here. We got to figure this out. And first step was, just as always, to just get some basic supplies in the car, and then make it down to the Kingston area where we stayed the first night.
Yeah, and Jamaica had, dodged a lot of really strong hurricanes for, almost a generation, right? Nearly 40 years. Was the mood in Jamaica, were people like understanding that, oh, this is a significant storm on the way?
I would say the first day we were there, you couldn't have known that there was a storm coming. Everything was just as is, or at least what I can assume a normal day in Jamaica is like. We got down to Kingston. Everything was just running as normal. We talked to like the place we were staying at. We're like, are you guys getting prepared for the storm? We're looking at the security guard who's in this little hallway, and it's just single pane glass on either side. And I'm like, do you guys have a plan for when this thing hits? And they're like, it'll be fine. We're like, oh man, oh, please go into your room. But I'd say the first day, not so much. The second and third day we were there, it absolutely became apparent that, everybody was taking this seriously, because it was such a slow moving storm. And like you've said, so many storms have just grazed the island, no landfalls, big storms have gone just south a lot of the time. And so I think there was a sense of, maybe this won't happen. Maybe this won't be the case. And then by the day before landfall, it was pretty apparent everybody was taking this seriously, and there was, nobody out on the streets for the most part, people getting supplies and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was a moment too where I mean, watching stateside, it looked like it may dodge the island completely. It kept jogging west, which you mentioned you guys had to change locations because of that jog. But it got to a point where it's like, man, if it keeps going, it's going to miss Jamaica completely. And everybody had their fingers crossed that would be the case. But then it took that northern turn, like a hard turn north. And that's when I think everybody knew, all right, this is going to be the worst case scenario for Jamaica.
Yeah. And I won't lie, there was a part of us that was like kind of hoping it was obviously for the people there, but even for our own intents and purposes, like we were like, oh man, this is a lot. This is our first time. I've chased a couple times in Canada and Mexico, but in places that are like, very similar to chasing in the US. Like, you can't really compare chasing a extratropical hurricane system thing in Nova Scotia to Jamaica. That's about the only foreign chase experience that I've had, and chasing waterspouts in Mexico. But just being there and being like, okay, what is going to happen after this? Because I know we can survive the storm, right? I know we can get through it. It may be intense and scary, but like the aftermath, if the infrastructure completely fails, and it's an island, it's not like the States where you can just have, other states, surrounding states come in and provide aid and electrical trucks and food, water, all that stuff. You're on an island, and that takes time to get things going back to normal. In fact, I'm still in contact with some of the people there, and a lot of places still don't even have, running water or power as of at least a week ago. So I was just thinking like, man, what's going to happen after this? Are we going to be in a really tense situation here for a week or 2 weeks? Like, we didn't know how long we would be stuck there. So that was kind of rolling around in my head a lot. And when it was jogging west, there was kind of a part of me that was like, just keep going. Like, obviously we want to document this, but just, I wouldn't hate if it just kept going and this was a bust.
Yeah, absolutely. That is I feel like in every storm chaser's heart and mind, a constant conflict of desire to capture something, but then desire for, severe weather to leave a center of population. Yeah. That's a real conflict that we talk about a lot on the show. Yeah. So y'all made the decision as you're seeing the track, go westerly. Obviously landfall is going to be on like the southwestern tip of Jamaica. You mentioned in your mini doc that you analyze that place, that geography as a place to go, maybe capture. And as storm chasers, as videographers, often when you're chasing hurricanes, you want to be right where the eye makes landfall. Yep. But y'all made a different decision. What was a part of that decision making process?
The biggest thing initially was we just didn't have time to go scope out down there. The U.S. coastline I'm very familiar with. I've had the opportunity to go through most of the Gulf states and some on the eastern coast, and really see what is available there as far as just local geography, terrain, elevation, and the structures that are there. We didn't have time to do that in Jamaica. Obviously, we were landing and just making decisions as they came, and we also were worried about the potential for landslides. There were rainfall graphics showing potentially 30 plus inches of rain. We don't want to get stuck in a local or in a rural community in Jamaica on the coast just because we want to be the guys who got, in the right front quad as it made landfall. Mm-hmm. We would prefer to be in a safer area with more population, with more resources, so we can, the goal is to always be self-sufficient. The goal is to always be able to get out on your own, have everything that you need before the storm so that afterwards you're not impeding on any local resources. And it just felt like if we went to the Southwest coast, we were going to have to get like a rescue mission for us to get out. And I know some did it successfully, so I'm happy that was the case, but we just didn't want to take that risk. And the North Shore is a little more kind of like resorty. There's a lot more infrastructure as far as like places where you can stay if you're, an out of towner. And we were able to find a pretty solid structure to ride out the storm in. And it was like I was saying earlier, it was a little scary. It was a big, gnarly storm that we weren't necessarily upset about the fact that maybe it'd be a little weaker by the time it got to us.
Yeah, no doubt.
And even then, as you can see in your doc, like that was not a weak storm.
It was a lot.
Y'all posted up in this, this really beautiful, like yellow home, like yellow painted home, and very distinct. And it looks, so sturdy.
Yeah.
Could weather a storm. It looked really structurally sound. But y'all were kind of in like a haunted house. It seemed like in the middle of that storm.
Yeah.
That was some intense hurricane footage. Walk us through just kind of being in that place and going through an eyewall experience.
Yeah, the night before I couldn't sleep. I was up all night using every last bit of data. The data was fading out. The power cut out at like 3 a.m. And I tried my best to fall asleep, but I really couldn't. And 5 a.m. rolls around. We kind of go outside and get our first few shots of the tropical storm force winds. And then we go through the whole morning. We're just at that point getting updates via text message. SMS texts are coming through. I think the last satellite image I was able to load on my phone was probably around like 7 a.m. or something. So we were heavily dependent on other people telling us what was happening. And, we get to this point where the wind starts getting intense outside. I actually, random, but I since I didn't sleep the night before, I was so tired that morning. I took this like 15-minute nap. And I felt like I was hallucinating as I took this nap because my body knew I needed to rest a little bit. And outside, it's just you can hear the wind ramping up. You can hear things starting to hit. And I just took this 15-minute weird nap. And then I woke up and it was like, boom, game time. And that's when probably the outer portions of the eyewall started hitting.
We're in a very safe spot. This is all concrete, multiple rooms, multiple units here, but we anticipate to lose windows. We anticipate to lose the roof, which is thankfully one level above us. This is nerve-wracking, but we are going to be all right. We will hunker down wherever we need to, and just we'll figure it out.
So ran back outside, started filming. It was actually pretty gradual. I'd say a lot of times with these bigger storms, it's actually not as gradual of a ramp up as you would think it is. A lot of times it's like very kind of, not a whole lot going on, not very dramatic. And then you hit that outer portion of the eyewall and it's like, boom, everything escalates tenfold. This was a very gradual curve and it just kept getting more and more and more intense until we got into that eyewall. And we were filming out on the front porch for the first portion of the storm. And, there's leaves and branches flying by. There's these kind of, there was a resort that was being built just down the road from us with a lot of scaffolding and cranes and stuff, and you could hear those falling. They also had a bunch of just kind of poorly built little shacks, I guess, for the workers to hang out in while they weren't working, and those were just peeling up and ripping off one by one the sheet metal roofs and stuff like that. And it got to a point where we're like, okay, we can't be out on this front porch anymore. We were kind of, the wind was kind of paralleling the coast as we were on the northern eyewall. We were getting kind of easterlies, which then turned to northeasterlies, and then more northerly, which would put, we're facing north. So that would put the wind directly into the front porch area. So we're like, okay, we got to go inside. Also, it's just getting intense. Like we don't need something falling on us. So we go back inside and then kind of hang tight for a minute.
Yeah, and in the video, it just turns into complete whiteout.
Yeah.
Like you can't see. It looks like maybe 25, 50 yards at most for visibility. And having been in those situations before, like the world's a whiteout. Mm-hmm. It's like you're in a washing machine at that point. But the winds, just the sound of the wind was crazy in this video, and just a constant whistle.
Yeah.
And then you guys started to experience some damage to the building that you're in. Walk us through that and kind of like what was going down and then what was going on internally once stuff started to go down.
So we go back inside and it's chaos. Like you said, that whistle, that just howl, it's just so terrifying. Even though I've been through dozens of storms, like I've heard that before, but like just with everything going on, all the different aspects of this storm and where we're at and everything, is just, it escalates everything tenfold, I'd say. And we're hanging out inside for a sec, collecting our breath, and all of a sudden the front door just pops open.
Our door just completely blew open here. once we were able to lock it, it's holding in place, but part of the frame is just on the floor now, so we're gonna probably have to shove something against this, like the couch.
It might have been loose before. Like, I remember when we first got there, like, it was a little loose and maybe something was going on there, because it was just like we weren't even in the full brunt of the eyewall, and the wind wasn't even completely northerly yet. It might have been a pressure thing, I don't know, but it just pops open and we're like, oh man, run and shut the door. We're able to lock it still. There's still enough of the door frame left to lock it in place, and we're like, all right, let's just push this couch in front of it just to be safe. And it was kind of a tight fit. We had to like press the frame of the couch against the frame of the door, and it was snug, so I was like, okay, that'll hold. And then we're like, we got to get a few more shots of this while it's still like manageable outside. There's a back door, thankfully, so we go out the back door, and there's a second level that we can run up to and just kind of go up there and film. And it's just escalating, very rapidly at that point. The gusts start getting truly violent, like solid Cat 4 gusts. And I keep hearing this. You can't really hear it in the video, but I remember it so vividly. You kept hearing this sound like shattering glass, and I was like, what is that? Like, there's no way all these windows are breaking. Like, I can see them. They're still intact. It was the tiles from the roof that were just getting peeled off and thrown and just smashing on the ground. And it was just like a constant glass shattering sound. And I'm like, this roof may not last that much longer. And we're on the second story, and we're technically like, we're in a covered patio area, but we're outside under this. I don't want to be a part of the roof coming off and onto us. So one of my chase partners, Michael, was with me up there, and I was like, dude, we gotta go back down. Like, I don't feel comfortable being up here. We've got enough. We got some shots. I just wanted to get one more angle. I wanted to get some footage, and then after I got a few shots, I was like, all right, I don't care. We're going inside.
Do we need to go back in? Huh? I don't know. This is getting pretty gnarly. I'm worried the roof's going to come off, and we're going to be part of that. Go.
And so that's what we did. We ran back down, and in that short period of time, one of the bedroom windows had cracked. Thankfully, it was double pane, so the outer pane busted, and the front or the inside pane was still intact, but the window itself, the actual frame, is like trying to pull out. And we can see the doors just like rattling, and the other windows are holding on for dear life. And we're like, okay, we need to just hang out in here. We don't need to get any more footage. I did put a couple cameras by the windows just to like get something. And it was around that time that the front door blows in a second time.
We need help. Help!
And, I was walking up to go check it out, and I was like pressing record as it blows open, and it shoves the couch like into my legs. And it's funny, in the video you watch, there's like a delayed response. Like, I press record, I start filming like you're looking at the door open, and then I go, oh F. Like, it was just so like, oh no, like what is going on? What are we going to do to stop this? Put the camera down, start pressing all my weight against the door. And it's just like, it's just biting me. It's pushing me back. And since the kind of frame around where the latch goes had been busted earlier, and now I've got this wind and everything's, blowing, it's impossible to secure it by myself. So I'm just fighting this. Little do I know that in the back, they had been filming once again. They briefly opened the door, which may have been part of why, the pressure differential may have had something to do with that. But they were filming out the back door when the front door blew in, and our other chase partner, Connor, just gets shoved out the back. And Michael, who was standing a few feet behind the door, it's very wet in there because there's so many leaks and stuff. The floor is tile, and it's just like, it's just like covered in an inch of water. He just slides a few feet forward as the door slams shut. Connor gets thrown out the back. Michael slams into the now shut door, and then they try and pull Connor back in because I'm trying to shut the front. the pressure and the wind probably tunneling through there is not allowing the back door to open. And it's just this whole few minutes of just chaos. Thankfully, they finally get Connor back inside. They get up to me. I'm still like just trying desperately to shut this door. And there's a moment where they're like, I don't know, Max, I think it's time to just back away and it's time to just go in the hallway and seek shelter. I'm like, we gotta try and secure this, because if we have an open door, that's going to be a huge problem, because everything from that point on, the pressure differential is everything's going to start popping out. And I know we can probably survive that still, but you don't want a wind tunnel for a category 4, category 5 rushing through your front door and have everything, blowing apart, because that's your one last line of security from the outside is a door or a window.
Yeah.
So we're able to shove that couch back in there. We go and take a bed frame out of the bedroom and put that up against it, and then we put like a little dresser in the back of that. So the force of the door, the way the load is like pressed all the way up against the back wall there, and that thankfully secures it from there. And then at that point we just go, okay, screw this. We're gonna go hide basically.
Hey, dear listener, storm chasing and podcasting both cost money. And now that Gabe and I are back making podcasts regularly, we have a new way that you can support our show. If you look in the show notes, you'll see a link to be able to subscribe to our podcast. This will cost you $5 a month, and you will be rewarded with early access to our podcasts. You'll get each episode 2 days early as a $5 a month subscriber, and we will read your name on the podcast. This support means the world to us. We take our time out of our regular lives to make these episodes, and so just a little extra support would really, really mean the world to us. Thank you so much for listening and considering subscribing.
It's wild. And in the video, you can see, just to explain to the listeners, you guys like legitimately barricaded that door shut.
Yeah.
It was a chain of furniture that extended from the door to the opposite wall. So there was zero room for that door to get blown in, but that's what it took to keep that door closed. And I want to backtrack a little bit too, because you talk about your chase partner getting blown out in the back.
Yeah.
And just to explain to listeners, when the front door burst in, it basically created an air pressure burst through the house.
Yes.
Which forced your chase partner out the back. So it was like the front door opened, the air pressure instantly changed, so much so that it pushed your chase partner out the door and then closed the door behind him. That's a nightmare scenario right there when you're chasing a category 5.
And I have no clue what's going on. I'm just like trying to press the door shut and I'm yelling, help guys, come help. And I have no clue that this has happened, in the back. And, he got cut up pretty bad. I'm not sure if it was glass or tile or something on the door that he caught when he was getting flung out, but he got a pretty gnarly cut on his hand. And, Michael's just, gets slid into the shut door, slams into that, and then is trying to open it. Just like the worst imaginable situation. And I'm sitting there wondering, why is nobody coming to help me? Like, where are these guys? I'm trying to get this door shut and I can't. I'm putting all my weight against it, and it's just fighting me every step of the way. So that was the final moment where we said, okay, we're done filming this. We're done trying to do anything other than hide. And we started out in the kitchen. We kind of like pushed the fridge in the doorway that kind of led back towards that front door and window, and the front window looked like it was about to pop in. We were just waiting for that. And then finally we decided, as we started getting on the more southwestern portions of the eyewall, the wind went from more northerly to northwesterly and then westerly. So it was coming, thankfully, actually in the complete opposite side where multiple units were protecting us. But the bathroom was the furthest room on the other side, which also had the smallest window. So we're like, let's just go sit in the bathroom. And we literally had like lawn chairs in there, and we're just sitting there just please end. Please come to an end.
The window by the front door is trying to blow in. The front door has blown in, but we've barricaded it, and we're retreating to the bathroom, which has the smallest window.
Okay.
There's been few times in my chasing career where I've had that feeling. One of the only times where I've been like genuinely nervous was Harvey, which was my first major hurricane. So I had a lack of experience there. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And the wall rips off our hotel. Nowadays, that would still be concerning, but I'd be like, well, we're in a hotel. We have so many places we can go to. When you're in a small little kind of condo like this, there's only so many places you can go run and hide. So this was the first time in a long time I was truly like, oh man, I don't like this. We are in a little over our heads, and I would really love if this would just stop right now.
Wow. Gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, especially coming from a person who has been in situations, of extreme weather. You saying that, is profound.
It was scary, man. I there's no way around it. I don't need to be, Mr. Tough Guy here. I was scared. I wanted it to end. Wow. I wanted it to end for just, we're sitting here thinking about everybody else that's around us too. Like there's so many people in this general area that are, they're living in places that may not be holding up as well as our place. Thankfully, most of the construction there is concrete based, but a lot of the roofs were not meant to take a storm like this. And I was just, I'm wondering what's happening to everybody else around us, what's happening to the airport, what's happening, what is going to be the aftermath. What is the aftermath going to be? These are all the thoughts running through my head in this moment. And then, we're sitting in this bathroom. It's just that whistle, that unmistakable whistle. And, thankfully after about an hour or so, it finally starts to calm down, and we finally start to be able to relax a little bit. And, from there, we just pretty much, documented a few more things, and then just laid there in our soaking wet beds, just like, whoa, we are okay. We're good.
Wow.
Dude,
that had to have been the longest hour to sit through just listening to that scream. I've heard people compare it to like a demon screaming.
Yeah.
And that seems legitimate. Like that's a good comparison. Just unnerving sound nonstop. You guys are hearing things shatter outside.
Yep.
You're just imagining what's happening to the townspeople, and it's just nonstop for an hour before it starts to subside.
Yeah.
And then you have the downward trend from there, which I imagine was pretty gradual, just like the buildup.
It was very gradual. We still had hurricane force conditions for the next couple hours, but once it finally settled enough to where we could, safely feel safe enough to go walk out front again by that front door. And thankfully the wind was now, westerly. So it was once again kind of parallel to the building as opposed to coming straight in the front windows. And they were pretty quick to respond as the sun started setting. There were emergency crews coming by, and we saw big flashlights outside checking on people. We were fine, so we stayed there, but with a door that no longer locks or really even closes and windows blown out. The next morning we're like, okay, we need to see if we can find somewhere, because we know we're stuck for at least 3-4 more days minimum. We plan for at least a week. We're like, let's see if we can find somewhere else. And amazingly, there was data within a few miles. We got a few miles down the road, and we started getting text through. And then we got by the airport. There was a little cell tower there that was still intact. And we had full 5G LTE, completely able to,
Wow.
look for Airbnbs. And my friend Michael, he's like, we call him our travel agent, because he's like Airbnb extraordinaire, finds us the best place to stay every single time. He actually got banned or locked out of his account because he sent so many messages on Airbnb. They flagged it as like potential scammer, I don't know, something. And we finally found another rental property owned by these nice individuals who lived in Montego Bay, and they were able to get us in. It was same situation that, the floor was soaked with water, but the windows and doors were still intact, which was basically what we were looking for. And then we just stayed there for the next few days. And honestly, aftermath, it was bad damage everywhere, but credit to the Jamaicans. They are very quick to just get things going again, and they're joking and laughing the entire way. And obviously we're from a different country, and we're there to film this horrible thing that just happened. We're trying to tread lightly and just like I'm not taking out my camera to film. I'm just, we're just trying to exist there until we can leave. And everybody was so kind and so warm and receiving. And we just kind of go out that next morning and meet everybody that's there, and they're picking up the courtyard area, and we're like, you guys want some help? They're like, yeah, of course, come help. And they're making jokes as we're cleaning up debris. And then they're like, we're going to have a barbecue tomorrow with all the chicken and beer that we have left. Come on down. And we're just like, holy, like, this is so unexpected awesome. Based on all this damage. And everybody was incredible. So props to everyone we met. I wish I could shout them all out.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We've talked about that before too. Just the unifying experience of going through something like that. And so many natural disasters that I've documented, and every single one, there isn't one that stands out in my mind that this didn't happen, where neighbors are like, man, I wish it didn't take a natural disaster for me to meet my neighbor. And they would have block parties, and just like everyone would come together and share resources. And it happens every single time. And it's so amazing to hear about that, and you guys being invited in as outsiders. Just like, it doesn't matter. Like, people are people. Yep. Like, we've all just gone through this horrendous thing. Like, let's just unify and take care of each other.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we saw. And, I'm still in touch with some of the people that we've met down there. We've talked with, ironically, the very first place we booked on Airbnb before we had even flown out to Jamaica was in just outside of White House, which is where the storm made landfall at peak Cat 5 intensity. And we booked it. And then by the time we got there, we're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go somewhere else. And we were able to reach back out to them and see, is that place still even there? How are you guys doing? And they said, yeah, it's sustained bad damage, but it's still there. We're fine. Thanks for reaching out. The secondary place that we ended up staying at for the few days after the storm, I've been in contact with them. They were telling me about, just they still, as of a week ago, hadn't had any power back on, any running water. And I've just been trying to just keep in touch, see how things are going, see if there's any way we can help, try and get some more local charities that we could potentially donate to. And they're hanging in there. I hope they've got power back by now. I haven't heard from them in about a week, but I really hope they've got power and running water back, because that's rough. A month without running water or power, like, yeah, that's so difficult. And it's warm there, every single day it's getting into the 80s, and no AC, that gets pretty old after a while. And we were only there a few days, and we're walking around with our shirts off the entire time. Imagine that for a full month. So I just really feel for everybody there, and I hope they're starting to get back to some normality.
Yeah, absolutely. The cleanup continues, and just some of the top line stats from Melissa as we look back on it. It looks like close to $10 billion in damage for the Jamaican people, the costliest in Jamaican history. We have it's just some weather stats like you talked about, Gabe, with that Dropson data. It's tied for maybe like top 3 lowest pressure readings on the surface. Just an extraordinary storm. Close to 100 people losing their lives in this storm. So those numbers will probably continue to climb as recovery efforts continue. But just an extraordinary storm, and obviously an extraordinary experience. Yeah. And man, we're glad you guys are safe. Yeah, we're glad you guys are safe. Just unbelievable. And I was thinking about the entire time you were talking of how reliant I am in particular in storm chasing situations with data, real-time data. Yes. And y'all didn't have any of that. You were just experiencing nature blindly, and how much like emotional relief often I get from having just real-time data, seeing like, okay, here's where the storm is, here's what's happening, here's what we can expect.
You can contextualize what's going on based on this image that's on your phone. Like you can say, okay, it's getting worse now because we're almost to the eye wall, as opposed to just like, there was a point where I was like, not sure if this was like the peak eye wall when we were still out in the front. And I was like, maybe this is it. And it felt like, it felt like solid Cat 2, Cat 3 type winds. You just don't know. You like, this could be the peak. We could have missed it. It could have gone further east or west. And we're just getting occasional text messages like, drops on just revealed 982 or 892 pressure. Eye is going more north towards Montego Bay. No, wait, it's curving northeast. Just like these little tiny bits of information, and and then it goes out completely. It's just, completely different than chasing in the States. And like I said earlier, the relief efforts. It's not like you go chase a hurricane on the Gulf Coast and you see hundreds, if not thousands, of power trucks coming in from all the surrounding states. You can't get that in an island, on an island. They have what they have, and that's it until maybe they can sense more stuff. So just a completely new experience, and I don't think I'll be doing something like that again anytime soon. I think I experienced it, and I think we documented it well. I do want to go back without a storm, just to see some of our friends that we made again in a more normal context. But I think I've had my fill of a storm like that on an island. That's good.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. And wild enough, the island gave you a little parting gift when you guys were after the storm, when you guys were making your preparations to leave. Yeah.
We saw this little water spout. It was like, so I've chased water spouts before. I go down every few years to like the Florida Keys to chase water spouts. So it's like, a little obsession of mine. And the thing I love about water spouts is they're relatively harmless. They're usually, week out over the ocean, and I can basically take a vacation. And, I'm also, most of my vacations somehow revolve around weather in some sense. But we walked outside of our, of our little apartment in Jamaica, and I looked at this cloud line. I was like, that looks really favorable. That's of course it's not going to happen, but we watched it, and all of a sudden you see this little translucent funnel start to come down, and I ran as fast as I could back inside. I had this like, the classic chase your nightmare where you like pull out your camera because something's happening and there's like no SD card or like the battery's dead or something. That exact thing happened. I ran all the way back in, which was 100 yards or so, grabbed my camera, ran back out. It's like condensing, and then I turn it on and it says no SD card. I'm like, run back inside, grab the SD card, come out. So that was kind of funny. But and a lot of the people there were outside, and they just sat there and watched it with us, and it just harmlessly kind of went out over the water.
That's great. That's so a little gift. Well, changing gears a little bit, still talk about hurricanes. Another storm we really wanted to talk about and are super interested in because of your incredible filmmaking and your connection again to the people who are impacted by these storms. Your documentary filmmaking is so wonderful because you do highlight the people and not just the weather. And that's something that Gabe and I are interested in. But Hurricane Ian, man, what a storm, what a story. Again, we will link your Hurricane Ian documentary in the show notes. We talk about a lot of documentaries and filmmaking and stories on this podcast, but like I cannot overstate kind of the importance of this documentary, the impact of it. I think it's an extraordinary thing that you captured. I was so moved by it. And after all these years of seeing, storm photography and hearing storm stories, it is incredible. Can you tell us about that storm and kind of your filmmaking process and capturing, in particular, the story of a couple of survivors?
Yeah, that was an interesting storm because about 2018, I was inspired by Mark Sudduth, another longtime hurricane chaser who developed these probes back in 2005, and his goal was to capture storm surge and have it sent out live to anybody who wanted to watch. And he's been perfecting that for the last few decades, and I was inspired by that. I didn't necessarily want to do the live thing, but I wanted to capture storm surge from start to finish, from a fixed location in a spot that we couldn't be, in a spot that was too dangerous for us. And many big hurricane seasons, especially 2020, had these things with me, developed them, fine-tuned them in 2019, 2020, deployed them on basically every storm, and whether it was after dark, so we didn't get good footage, or it was just put in the wrong spot, just failure. 2021 got an okay storm with Ida. We put it on the levee system and filmed the water coming up over the levee. That was like, okay, proof of concept. This kind of works. This kind of can capture something unique. And then 2022, similar to this year, it was pretty slow in August and early September, and then all of a sudden we get Fiona, and then we get Ian, and flew to Nova Scotia for Fiona, flew from Nova Scotia to Orlando, one of the only direct flights out of Nova Scotia, out of Halifax. Ironically, just happened to go right to Orlando, where I met up with Aaron Rigsby. And so we deploy this probe on Fort Myers Beach. It captures the most, I would say the best storm surge from start to finish probably ever captured. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, but I think
there's
right.
no probable about it. Like, it is definitely the most extreme example of video of storm surge. It will stand for a long time.
You can see it come in, you can see it gradually escalate, you can see to the point where waves are crashing over the camera, and then you can see it recede. I posted the full 10 hours on my YouTube if anybody wants to see that. But that was the goal, right? To capture that in its entirety. And I remember, the storm was intense. We were north of there for landfall, and then we go back down, and it takes us hours to navigate through everything to get to Fort Myers Beach. And we come over the little bridge there, and it's just, everything's decimated, and it's just gut wrenching and hard to even think about now. But we're like, did our probe make it? Did it at least, something capture what happened here for people to see what occurred? And the probe was it was sitting there. It was right on the concrete pole we mounted it on. No damage. I just pull it down, and I look, and it says SD card full, battery, 100%. And it was just like, thank God this survived and was able to capture what happened. And little did I know that it was pointed right at this house that ended up floating away. And I remember pulling the SD card out and kind of pulling a few clips together to throw online, and noticed that, oh God, this house floats away. And then I remember one of the commenters on the video hours later, when we were heading back up towards Tampa, said, I wonder if those people inside are okay. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, at minute mark, whatever, somebody pokes their head out the door. And I'm like, okay, hold on. And I see what they're talking about. I'm like, oh God. And I start scrubbing through the video, seeing okay, did they leave? Surely they must have left at some point, and they didn't. They rode the storm out there. The house goes. They are inside with it. It's a gentleman named Todd and his girlfriend Annette and their two dogs. And they basically are floating down the road, 15 feet of storm surge. They jump out the back door or back window, and one floats to a tree, one floats to a telephone pole. Eventually they, lose their grip. And the two dogs are tied via leashes to Annette, who's, she's not a very, she's very petite and not, these are big dogs. These aren't little Pomeranians or something, and she somehow managed to keep them alive in this tree for hours, and floated to the house that Todd ended up at, and he was able to pull them up, and they survived there. And word got around that this storm chaser had caught video of the thing happening, and I was mortified because I thought I had filmed somebody passing away, and it was blowing up everywhere because everybody wanted to see what had happened to Fort Myers Beach. And it was just this whole roller coaster of emotions. We ended up meeting them right after the storm, brought them some supplies, just, doing the right thing, just not shoving cameras in their faces, just like, give me a hug. Like, I'm so glad you're alive. I just want to give you a hug, give you some supplies from Tampa, since down there wasn't a lot. And like, that's it, like nothing more. And we kept in contact for the following weeks. And then eventually they said, we would be okay with doing an interview if you guys want. And then we were able to interview them. And so, and have maintained a relationship with them. Unfortunately, Todd passed away earlier this year due to some health issues. But for the past few years, every single storm that even got close to the Tampa area, even just anything, it was, we were texting back and forth, and just, he always had a sense of humor about it. I remember one of the last texts I got from him was after Milton last year. And I said, "Hey, how are you guys hanging in?" And he said something along the lines of, "No swimming this time," or something like that. Just like had a good sense of humor about it. But yeah. And then Annette was just recently on Discovery Channel in the eye of the storm with us, and she did a great job of recounting all of that. And that's a good watch too.
Gosh, just wild. I can't imagine the emotional roller coaster you guys were on, reviewing the footage and seeing that you captured something historic, then realizing, oh my gosh, there's people in there.
It was horrible.
And then what was the moment like when you found out, oh, they survived? Because it was family that let you know, right?
It was. So we get back to Tampa. Aaron has some, or I guess St. Pete. We were staying at his family's house that they had evacuated, but they had let us stay there. And the whole ride home is when I'm scrubbing through the footage and just being like, oh God, they don't leave. Like they're there. And you can't really see when the house floats away if anybody like gets out. Like it was just like, horrible. And we went to bed that night, just like with the whole car ride home was silent. We just get back and we're just like, man. And it was the next morning, I think it was Instagram. I get this message and said, hey, you filmed my brother's house. That was my brother's house floating away. And I'm just waiting for it, like, oh God. And it goes through, he was texting my mom and said, Mom, the house is going, I love you, and all this stuff. And then like one of the last messages was like, they're okay. They're in the hospital right now. They'll be released later today. And it was just like, oh my God.
Wow.
It's so hard to explain what you feel in a moment like that. But like when it's so crystal clear that somebody was in this house and it floats away right in front of the camera, it's just like so much guilt. And then to find out they're alive, it was just like, all right, let's just try and get them some supplies and give them a hug. Honestly, it's crazy. But yeah, so we've kept in touch, and that video still to this day is probably it probably will be for my career, like the most important thing that I think I've ever put out. And that's why I put it out in its entirety. Like so many people don't know what storm surge is. They hear it and they're like, water wave. Is it like a tsunami? Like, what is it? And it's like, this is from start to finish what a storm surge is and what it can do at, a higher echelon level. So I'm proud of that video. I'm thankful that the story was one of survival, because there was so much death and destruction on Fort Myers Beach and elsewhere. It was just pretty miraculous that like that ended up being such an incredible survival story. And, we got to meet them and hear the tale. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think anything will ever top that. And I don't think I ever want anything to top that. I think that's good.
Absolutely. I was really touched when you were interviewing Todd and Annette, that Todd telling the story of, they know a hurricane's coming. They live close-ish to the beach, but, their house is kind of raised. Yeah. It's up on, some stilts, and it's just like a universal human experience of like folks in the paths of these storms, and it totally makes sense to me in a way where you're like, everybody is making a series of decisions in their head of like, do we stay? Do we go? Is this something? Is this nothing? And him just describing the water coming up and coming up and coming up and coming up. And it is truly harrowing. And him being in the house moving in the water, it's unbelievable. It's
just hard to fathom. Like you look and you think there's no way the ocean down there can come up 15 feet and have waves. Like it's hard to believe. There's so many, it's obviously ironic now with all the AI stuff, but even back in 2022, there were so many comments like, is this real? Is this AI? Like, what is this? Like, it's hard to fathom that can actually happen. And for those of us, in the meteorological world, storm chasing world, we're constantly watching the updates from the NHC, from, every single hurricane model out there, from satellite. Normal people aren't doing that. They watch the nightly news maybe, and then they get their information, and then they go to bed, and then they continue on, with their day. And a lot of people watch the news the day before, and a lot of the graphics still had it going more up towards Tampa or St. Pete or, that general vicinity. And, sometimes you just take that bit of information and that's what you stick with. It's hard to fathom from a storm chase perspective, but that's the reality of some people's lives. They have other things that they're attending to, and if they hear that it's going up somewhere else, they go, "Oh, okay, I don't, I'll stay home tomorrow, but I don't have to worry about it that much." And as we know, a lot of these major hurricanes can make sudden curves, especially when they're having jet interactions, like it was with Ian, and it curved much further south.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it stayed within the cone, like it rode that southern edge of the cone. But I think there needs to be a marketing campaign of shift happens, and people need to stay aware. It's such an important topic, especially when it comes to storm surge. That's the more deadly part of a hurricane, 100%. Way more deadly than the wind speeds. The wind speeds, the wind you see and the debris flying around, that's the stuff, the exciting stuff visually that people always think of with hurricanes. But it's the water. By far, water is the most deadly part. Freshwater flooding is another aspect of it that most people don't think about. But
water is terrifying. Water is even with Melissa, as scary as it was, I was like, I know we can survive this. We're just gonna have to hunker down, but I know we can survive this. If something like that, the water is scary, and we kind of tested our luck last year with some storm surge stuff with Helene and Milton, but that's where you really feel helpless, is when you're surrounded by water and you're like, no one can help me, and I can't really help myself if something goes wrong here. The water is so powerful, and it just encompasses everything. It's a whole different beast.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Just for like my own like tech nerdy like gear person inside of me, can you tell us like how you build those storm surge probe cameras? Like what's inside, and how does the battery last for that long?
It's surprisingly simple. It's just a little Pelican case. I get one of those batteries, that you would use to charge your cell phone or something off Amazon, $30-40, have it plugged into a off-market GoPro, which I was able to manipulate the firmware so it would just keep recording on a like 512 gigabyte SD card. So it just literally is like, I use a little Dremel to cut out a hole, put some Lexan over it, put the camera so it sticks out the hole, plug it into the little Amazon battery, and it just goes. And that's worked so far. I've tried experimenting with a better version of it, using a GoPro, using a bigger battery and all this sort of stuff. And every time like the GoPro overheats or the battery has issues with moisture, and it's like the most simplistic version of it has been the one that has worked consistently. So I've just been sticking with that. We are actually working on a better one that I think will end up working with a bigger camera and a bigger battery and the ability to control it manually. Because the other thing is, when you set these probes up, you have to press record and you have to leave it, because there's no, it's all manual. There's no remote aspect to them. So you have to deploy them in a time frame that the SD card won't run out, which is, a lot of times not as long as you would like to have when they're shutting down bridges and they're closing off coastal communities or barrier islands. They're closing that stuff off. So it's been a tricky thing to try and time those right, and that's why for so many years it didn't work out. But yeah, it's relatively simplistic, and anyone can build them. I wasn't the originator of this idea. Like I said, Mark Sudduth was who inspired me, and I reached out to him asking if I can do something similar, and he's like, I don't have a patent on the idea. I think the more footage the better. Go for it. So I encourage anybody who wants to do something similar, just do it safely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just use a ratchet strap
to
put it on a pole way up. I love it. I love the simplicity of the design. And obviously less complications equals maybe more success.
Yep. And if we lose one, it's a few $100s down the drain, but we can. But yeah, it's always a ratchet strap to either a telephone pole or a concrete pole or a drainage system on a levee like we did with Ida. They work surprisingly well for how simplistic they are.
That's awesome. That's wild. Yeah, you caught some other wild footage, some construction cranes and things like that falling in that storm as well. Yep. But yeah, the surge footage is one for the ages, just extraordinary. And how far was the beach and the water's edge from that house? I didn't fully grasp that in the video, but how many yards do you think it was, the low water, not the surge? I
would say probably 200 yards, maybe.
Okay.
100, 200 yards. Yeah. But the thing is that the first thing we noticed when we got on Fort Myers Beach was the lack of elevation. It's just, you look straight out and you're at the water. You can barely even tell there's elevation. And there's obviously no seawall or sand dunes or anything like that. So pretty quickly, I was like, even though at that point, the day before the storm, even that was pretty far south for us. We still weren't sure if that was going to be too far south. But I was like, we should probably just put a probe down here tonight. And the shape of the coastline too, that has a big part in, how it all collected there. It's kind of like, I describe it as a catcher's mitt. It's easy to funnel in a lot of water, and even taking out of account the kind of shallow sea out there and all the effects that has on storm surge, just the fact that the coastline is shaped like that and it's on the southern side of the storm, and you just get that right front quad that is pushing all that water up in there. It was the perfect disaster for that area.
Yeah, no kidding. And it was at the time the deadliest storm to strike Florida since 1935. 161 total fatalities across Cuba, Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia, that far north. A total of $112 billion in damages. So an absolute monster.
Yeah.
Monster. Just wild. But yeah, again, if you're listening to this, go to our show notes, click that Hurricane Ian documentary, spend 30 minutes of your time, whatever you're doing. If you're eating lunch, if you're hanging out, it is a historic document. And just well done, man.
Thank you.
It's an incredible thing that you created.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm glad, I'm glad it ended up being, a net positive, and we were able to tell their story and just, get it out there, because surviving something like that is so incredible, and it deserves to be appreciated by others, what they went through and how they pulled through.
Absolutely. An incredible story of survival. Yeah. Just wild. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Max. Is there any place on the web that you would love to point our listeners to check out some of your amazing content?
Yeah, I would just say go to Max Olson Chasing on YouTube. That's the primary platform I focus on. You can also find me on Twitter. I think it's MesoMax919. Mostly just stick to YouTube and Twitter, or X, I guess. And yeah, just going to be releasing end of year recap here soon. So some of the tornadoes that I didn't make a standalone video for will be in that.
Yeah, that'll be one to check out for sure. And just the mountain of content you have on that YouTube page. You know, a person could spend days, it feels like, watching incredible footage. So yeah, listener, go check out that Max's YouTube page. Yeah, thank you again for joining us, and thanks for your time, man. This has been really wonderful. We absolutely want to have you back in the future. I especially want to have you back and want to talk about tornado tours and the stories you have there, because I'm sure those stories are.
I got some good ones.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for listening to StormReel. Please, if you could, rate, review, and subscribe. And if the place you're listening has a little bell or notification tool, hit that, and so you know exactly when the next episode of StormReel releases. Thank you again to Orograph for the use of our awesome theme song, Metamorism. You can find that song and album streaming everywhere, and his wonderful work on season 5 of Stranger Things on Netflix. You can find us everywhere at the StormReel and stormreel.com. Please share that. That really helps us out. For StormReel, I've been Jeremy Heyman, joined by Gabe Cox. We'll talk soon.